Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome back to another episode of Dear Mama, You Got This. I'm your host, Trinise Evans. I'm a mom. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a whole bunch of stuff. But it ain't really about me. It's about us encouraging you. So do me a quick favor. Find your most comfortable spot. Get your favorite drink, whatever that may be. Hey, we listen and we don't judge. So whatever that may be, your favorite snack, and sit down for the next 30 to 40 minutes while we pour back into you being the awesome mother that you are. Make sure that you do me a favor also when you subscribe and you follow us on all our social media platforms. We are excited to be here. Let me introduce my host, Miss Shayla Gray.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. So happy to be here.
So if you've seen the episode before, you know she's a repeat guest. You know you got to get some valuable information that she has been here before. She's now part of the Dear Mama family, as you all are that's watching. But for those, this is your very first time hearing from her, I want you to know that she has some letters behind her name, that she has gone to school for this. She is educated. No, that's not a real word. Yes, I know that's not a real word, and I made it up. She's educated. She knows what she's talking about. So for those who need to know her background, let me read her very brief bio. Miss Shayla Gray is a licensed marriage and family therapist in Virginia and a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist in Maryland. She has over 10 years experience working in various mental health settings, including private practice, the Community Service Board, crisis facilities, and community-based services. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from the Virginia State University, her master's degree from Liberty University, specializing in marriage and family therapy, and her postgraduate certification from North Central University in autism and education and marriage and family therapy. She is a Harvard trained medical school trained in treating couples. She's trained in eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, also known as EMDR. Using a collaborative approach, her goal is to provide a safe space to begin working towards change. She specializes in relationships and working with trauma. She's committed to excellence and providing cultural, competent mental health services to the community. So once again, we say welcome, 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 welcome to Miss Shayla. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. As always, so excited to be here. So glad to be here today. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's hop right in. We're not going to hold you guys. So today's topic is the power of therapy. And I don't know, for those who may be watching, maybe you dealt with postpartum, maybe you didn't deal with postpartum. That was a whole other show that we did. But maybe you're questioning or trying to figure out if you actually need therapy. You may feel like you don't need therapy. But today we want to talk about therapy and why it's beneficial, especially to moms who are juggling so many different things. So, Cheryl, let me ask you a question. What would be the ideal person, I guess, or candidate for therapy?
Right. Well, so of course, I still believe in being person centered, right? Everybody is different. And so when you think about the ideal person for therapy, it's really a person who wants help, a person that is also willing to receive the help and to make the changes necessary in order to get to their goals. And so again, hearing all that, none of that has anything to do with me, right? It's not about me. It's really about the client and the individual who is seeking support. And so I think being willing to engage in therapy and being willing to make a change are the two very important factors that would say that person would be the great client, the ideal client.
So when looking for a therapist, first of all, let me ask this question because I know a lot of people say, "Well, I can do a life coach." Is there a difference between a life coach and then a therapist? And if so, what is it?
Right. So most coaching services, whether it be a coach or a mental health coach, it's going to be more future focused and more goal focused. In a sense of you're not talking about past traumas. You're not talking about any underlying diagnosis that may or symptoms that exist. It's really about the how do you solve the problem and get to the solution. And toward therapy is a mixture of both of those. Sometimes we have to go through it in order to get to the other side. And that may include revisiting some of those childhood experiences or really talking about and trying to narrow down some of those mental health symptoms. Maybe that is standing in the way or creating a barrier to you being able to get to your goal. And so that's a little bit of the difference there.
And what should I be looking for when it comes to because although there's a lot Well, it seems like there's a lot. What things should I be looking for when it comes to a ideal therapist? Like, should therapists be licensed or certified? And if so,
Mm,
like if I'm someone who needs therapy, but I live in DC, right? But I
okay.
want to do telehealth. I don't want to go in person. I want to do it from my computer in my home. Does my therapist have to live in DC, or how does that work?
Right, right. So I would say, whether or not a therapist needs to be certified or licensed, well, in order, from my experience, you need to be licensed in order to facilitate therapy, right? And so I think what you go towards is based on what you need. Right. So if you are struggling with certain symptoms, maybe you're struggling to focus, maybe you're struggling with sadness, maybe you have just these different symptoms and you're not really sure what's going on. You need a name to put to what you're experiencing. In that case, you may need a therapist or a psychiatrist or psychologist to be able to provide that diagnosis for you so that you can kind of get an understanding of what's going on and then you can know how to move forward. If you feel like you haven't really been experiencing many symptoms, but you just need kind of a focus on, okay, what are my goals? How am I moving forward? I need some guidance in moving forward. In that case, you may find that a coach of some sort may meet that need for you. In regards to, where you live and being licensed. So as a licensed marriage and family therapist, we are required to work with individuals, whether it be telehealth or in person, within the states that we're licensed in. So myself, I'm being licensed in Maryland and Virginia. I have to see clients who live in Maryland and Virginia. The session has to take place in those
Okay.
states that I am licensed in. So that is not to say that I am also offering some intensive therapy sessions where I may meet with a couple for 4 hours on one day and then transition them to another therapist. As long as that session takes place in Maryland or Virginia, then I'm able to see that client. Even if they live in New York, I would be able to see that client as long as the session is taking place within the state that I'm licensed in. And there's a plan to transition to care after that intensive session. So I know it can get a bit confusing, but
Hmm.
ultimately, as long as the individual is living in the state or the session takes place in that state where the therapist is licensed.
Absolutely. And I want to give a little bit of back history because, you hear a lot about telehealth and therapy. And so if you watch TV for longer than an hour, you're going to see some type of commercial, about it. And so I wanted our viewers to know like what therapy is. Some people can know, some people use coaching and therapy interchangeably. And I know that
Mhm.
they have different requirements and different things like that. And so I wanted the
Right,
viewers to know that as well. Let me first of
right.
all, those of you watching, you may see it come on the screen. Miss Shayla has her own book, which she'll talk about. I'm gonna put it on the
Mhm.
screen. She are you taking clients right now, Shayla?
I am. I am
Okay.
accepting new
So you
clients.
will have access to her website. Once you see the word website on the screen, click on it. That link will take you, and I'll also make sure that it's in the description under the video. But you'll be able to access her website and see all of her information. I'll give you her Instagram and I'll also give you her Facebook. You'll be able to get her if you are looking for a resource. I want to make sure that this podcast gave valuable resources. It wasn't just talking, but I wanted to make motherhood be better in any way I could. And so
Right,
that's the purpose of the podcast. I wanted us to have a safe place to talk and just be like, hey, I'm struggling, or hey, I'm having a good day, or hey, whatever that looks like. And so all of her information will be going across the screen. It will also be located in the description box of the video. And so what do you think you see mostly when it comes to moms coming to therapy? Like what's some of their reasons for coming?
yeah. So most of what I see is individuals really wanting to find a good work life balance. I think, especially when you think about motherhood, again, I know I mentioned this in the previous episode where I was joining, but I'm a new mother as well. My daughter is 5 months. And so it has been just, trying to figure out how to balance motherhood and balance work and balance, other roles. It can be overwhelming, right? It's a lot that you have to do. And so that's what I see. I see women coming in or parents coming in, right, wanting to figure out, okay, now that I have this great little being here now, or multiple little beings here, how do I balance everything else that I have to do in life? How do I balance having to provide for them, having to make sure that I am able to meet my needs? balance, right?
Absolutely.
And so, that's really what I'm seeing is people trying to figure out how do I get in the flow of the right balance that works for me so that I can do all the things that need to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know for me, my son just turned 11 months. Woo! So we getting there, we getting there. But I know that I was very overwhelmed with the responsibility. Like the
Mm,
weight of, and I have a boy, right? And so the weight of raising a young black, boy in today's society, that weight, even now, that weight, and I have a husband and all of that, but still knowing what awaits him, on the other side of the door, and he's only
mhm,
11 months. But how do I
right,
prepare him for the world without overly exposing him too soon? How do I balance? My husband's like, no, he needs to know, like, give it to him. I'm like, well, we want to ease him into, we don't want to expose him too young. And so just the
right,
pressure of knowing that he's going to be a grown man one day in a world that's not really cheering him on. The weight of that
right,
for me is a lot. And so when I do talk to my therapist, I like, how do I, as a mom, because you want to protect and you want to make sure that nothing ever happens. Now, I know that's not realistic, but I want to be like, no, no, nothing can go wrong for him. Everything has to go right for him. So for
yeah.
a mom that's raising a boy and it's totally different than raising a girl, how would you say to her, the pressures of that and what that looks like? How would you talk to her?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the first thing that would be important is to create a safe space to be able to talk about it and to acknowledge that, those pressures are very much real and they exist, right? And so I think that creating the safe space to be able to talk about it, what are your pressures rooted in? How do the part of you that's feeling that pressure, right? What is that part of you, that internal part of you need to feel less pressure or to feel like there could be a path moving forward? I think, again, the starting point would be to acknowledge that it exists and then bring it to talk about it. Because oftentimes, I think a part of motherhood or what we can find ourselves doing as mothers is trying to bury things down and not acknowledge those emotions because we have to get on to the next task, right? Dinner has to be served. We gotta get to work. We gotta make sure that everything else is good. And so that what that creates is a place where we're not acknowledging those feelings and we're burying them down. And then what that looks like is you are reacting to something or you are, feeling those feelings a little bit deeper because you have acknowledged that they're there. So I think creating a safe space to be able to talk about it is definitely the first step.
What about the mom that says, I'm struggling, but I don't need therapy? I can tough this out. I can pray this out. And listen, I am all for prayer. Let's not get it twisted. I believe in the
Yes.
power of prayer and hope. I believe in all that. But I also believe that God gave us people on earth who are gifted and called in certain areas. And you don't say,
Mhm.
oh, I cut my hand. I'm not going to the doctor to get stitches. I'm going to tough it out. But to that
Yeah.
woman or that mom or that parent that says, I don't have time, or I'm just going to
Right.
make it do what it do, what do you tell that person when it comes to therapy?
Right, right. Well, I want to start with also saying, I believe in prayer. And instead of the but, I'm going to say and, right? And I believe in prayer and we're all human. And so we need support. We need to be able to really pour into ourselves so that we can be our best selves every day. Because again, this world is stressful and there are things and factors that add on to that stress every single day. And so what I would say to that person is, asking yourself, what would be the worst outcome of therapy for you, right? If you were to go there and you just used an hour or 90 minutes, 30 minutes, however long the therapy session was, and you talked about how you were feeling, what is the worst that could come of that, right? And imagine having someone to navigate that worst case scenario with instead of having to do that for yourself,
Mhm.
right? And so I would encourage you folks to look at it that way. I know starting something new can be scary and it can feel overwhelming and we can feel like we don't have enough time for it. But I will say that our body is a magnificent vessel to
Mhm.
where if we don't make changes, our body it will show signs of that,
Absolutely.
whether or not you may find that you're having high blood pressure or you are maybe experiencing a little more anxiety or maybe you feel less motivated, right? Those are signs that your body's saying, okay, something's happening right now. We're having a reaction to something. And so we need to do something a little bit different.
Absolutely, absolutely. How do you, or how does a mom who's dealing with maybe her partner is not supportive? Like, is it possible for, although she's in a relationship, no matter the kind, but to say, my spouse, my partner, they're not interested in it. Is it okay if I say I still want to come and get some therapy? I want to still get help as a mom. Is that okay?
Mhm. Right, right. Certainly, certainly. So I work with individuals and I work with couples in therapy and I work with families in therapy. So, with being a marriage and family therapist, we believe that, the system is not just one person, right? It's multiple people that exist within that system. But, sometimes people aren't ready to start therapy yet. And, that doesn't mean that you have to not receive support, right? It could mean that maybe you start with the individual therapy, and then if your partner's ready down the road, it can transition into couples therapy. So, one of the main things that I try and focus on in the therapy space is helping individuals understand what they have control over. In most situations, you have control over you and what choices you make and what behaviors you can change. But sometimes those changes that you can make within yourself can help others and help create changes in other areas. So again, if your partner isn't willing just yet to start therapy, maybe you start with individual therapy first and see what changes come from that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you think that therapy? First of all, how do I say this? As a mom, juggling all the life brings as a mom, I feel like we're never off. I feel like you, even when you sleep, you still
Yeah.
like one eye halfway open. Like, did you move? Did you sneeze?
Right.
Did you roll over? Did anything happen right now?
Yes. Yeah.
Especially with our kids
Yeah.
being in our respective ages. I know if he,
Right.
I'm like, you still breathing? I'm checking his back. I'm
Right.
putting a mirror up under his nose. I'm doing all of those things.
Right.
But when it comes to therapy and balancing the faith piece, right? Because a lot of
Mm,
people, certain cultures, you don't go to therapy. Right, you just pray it away. You
right.
don't do, like, I have to says therapy plus God is good, like, clearly, because
Yeah.
and so, but for a lot of people, especially older, my generation, I was born in the 80s,
Hmm.
we were okay. And then those that are younger than us, they're like, yeah, I need it. But my
Hmm.
mom's generation, she's not doing therapy. No, ma'am, she's not doing that.
Right.
So
Right.
how do you reach
Right.
the mom that maybe is dealing with being an empty nester now? Like, her kids are transitioning out. She's a single mom, and so she's trying to rediscover who she is, but she has some issues. But in her mind, you don't
Mm,
go to therapy. How do you how?
right. Right. Well, I think that it starts with, as therapists sending the message that there are no supposed tos when it comes to the therapy space, right? Therapy is meant to be a resource for individuals who have tried different things and they feel stuck, right? And so, my message to that person would be, have you continued to try different things, including prayer, and you still feel stuck? And it's okay to incorporate something else with the hope of finding a solution or with the hope of feeling better. So I certainly think that therapy and religion can exist together. And, my goal in the therapy space, working with an individual who has that religious foundation and wanting to seek therapy, would be to talk about, okay, how do we create a balance here that works? Right? To where you can lean into your faith, but you can also talk about, the symptoms and the signs that you're experiencing that you feel like you're needing an action plan to move forward from. So it would be about, again, creating a space to be able to find that balance.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are some of the, I don't want to say most known, but what are some of the therapeutic approaches that you find to be most effective when it comes to, like, a mom being burnt out, or a mom dealing with guilt, or a mom dealing with shame, or like what? There's a listen. I'm trying to get my license
Yeah.
right now. So there are a ton of
Yeah.
options to choose from. In your level of expertise, which ones have you shown or known to be better? Not better, but can give good results when it comes to treatment.
Right. Well, that I will say, there are so many different therapy modalities that work well for individuals, just depending on, the therapist, their style of therapy, and also what the individual is presenting with, what their symptoms are, what their goals are. So, something that I've used or an intervention that I've used that is helpful a lot of times is collaborative problem solving, right? Just knowing that you are dealing with something and you're not having to go through that by yourself, right? You have someone who is listening to you, you have someone who is paired with you and partnered with you to help you to problem solve. Okay, what are the barriers that you're experiencing? And then let's envision what it would look like for you to no longer have those barriers there. Let's talk about that. How do you get there, right? How can we get there? Let's throw out some ideas. We don't have to finalize a plan yet. Let's just throw out some ideas. Before you know it, you have a list of ideas and things that you can choose from. To now that brings in your choice, your
Hmm.
control there. And you now know, okay, this is what these are things that I have control over and changes that I can make. You have an action plan that you can then take away. That is a very empowering intervention to lean into. Also it gives you a path forward with solutions. And I think that's a very important part of therapy, right? Being able to see the light at the end of a dark tunnel
Absolutely.
is a very, very important piece, a very important intervention to plug in.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that I'm a strong pusher. If that's even a good word to use, but I've been in therapy off and on stops in my teenage years. And, when I had my son, I had postpartum really bad, like really, really, really bad, and to the point that my mom noticed it. I didn't even notice that I had postpartum. So
Mhm.
to the mom that is watching this and she's trying to decide if she's struggling in postpartum. What can you tell her about postpartum?
So I would tell her that, you know, the experience of having a child and bringing a child into this world is so beautiful, right? But recognizing that with that experience, our bodies are not our bodies. There's so many changes that are taking place from the time of conception up to 2 years after the baby is born. There's so many things happening, whether or not you're choosing to breastfeed or you're not, you're parenting by yourself or you're parenting with someone else, you're trying to adjust to getting back to work, you're trying to adjust to who I am now, right? Body changes, mood changes, thought changes, all of these things,
Mm,
play into postpartum because again, your body has shifted, right? The body that you knew prior to conception is not the same now. And so, what I would say to that mother is that what you're experiencing now, the changes, right? That is normal for this season that you're
mm,
in, right? And again, you don't have to go through that alone, right? Whether it feels overwhelming, whether it feels scary, whether it feels draining, whether it feels sad, whether it brings up anger, all of that you don't have to deal with by yourself. I think that is again one of the extreme benefits of therapy is having someone in the space who again, they may not understand your direct experience, but they understand that what you're experiencing right now, based on the season that you're in, it makes sense.
absolutely. I think what you said is so major. Like when you said it's normal, because a lot of times you think that it's not. A lot of times, I know for me, when I was first going through it, although I knew something was wrong, I felt guilty for saying out loud, "I'm tired." I felt guilty for
Mm,
saying I'm exhausted. I felt guilty for saying, "Why is she crying again?" Because I prayed this, like I prayed for this. I prayed to get pregnant. I prayed to have my son. I fasted. I had people laying hands on me. I did all the things that we know that we do to have a baby. And now that he's
mhm.
here, I would feel bad if I said I'm overstimulated or I'm tired. Like I
Yeah,
felt like I wasn't supposed to have those kinds of feelings. I wasn't supposed to feel like he's crying again. Like, you know what I mean? And my
yeah,
son wasn't a crier, but when he cried, it was like, why, son? You know what I mean? So I like that you
right,
said it's normal. Can you speak more to that as far as
right,
making moms know that it's normal? What you're feeling, every mom has felt at some point or another. Every mom has been overwhelmed. Every mom has been
yeah,
tired. Every mom has been, even
yeah,
exhausted. So how can we normalize that part of motherhood and make it okay?
right. Yeah, yeah. Again, I think, just recognizing, I think it's often we don't put enough emphasis on again the changes that a woman's body goes through when we are conceiving to, beyond the birth of the child, right? there's so many different changes happening to where I think it's almost in some ways like an expectation that we just bounce back and you just go back into the same routine. The same energy level you had before, you should automatically have that again. And like you said, if you prayed for this, this should be, this is how you need to respond to that. And that is just such not the case many, many times, right? Again, due to our body and what our body experiences going through birth and adjusting to another person being here, that is going to bring up some emotions. That's going to bring up some mental and physical reactions to that. And those, I think, the fact that that comes up is normal, right? Now, you can also say that, I'm feeling extremely drained, I'm feeling extremely sad or depressed, and I don't want to feel like that, right? So that seeking that help for that, because yes, it makes sense that you are experiencing that. And you don't have to navigate that alone, right? There are supports, there are resources that can help you put a name to what it is that you are experiencing, the symptoms that you're experiencing, and can help you create a plan for how to move forward from that. And so, I want to normalize the help seeking piece of it, right? Because again, a lot of times as women, I think it's the misconception that we have to take the world on our
Absolutely.
backs and our shoulders, and we have to do it without saying anything.
Absolutely
And
again.
so I think that is what I want to normalize. I want to normalize the help of that, seeking help, so that you don't have to do that alone.
That word normalize is doing something for me. It really is.
Okay.
It's and I think because from the youngest, like before we ever get married or we ever have kids, we are taught by our mothers, right, that we fix it. Whatever it is, we make it right. And we grow up thinking that I have to be everything for everybody at all times. And sometimes, the more times than not, it's at a cost to me, right? It's at a cost to my.
Right.
So then you add, motherhood, which is the most rewarding um group to be a part of, but it ain't easy. It's a
Right.
misconception that motherhood is easy. Even
Right.
even when you're married, people think, oh, if I have a spouse, no, even married,
Hmm.
motherhood is not a cakewalk. When you
Right.
say no, like I think I'm about to cry. When you say normalize being okay, like this, my takeaway is normalize not being okay. Normalize and
Right.
saying I need help, or today's my
Right.
best day. No,
Yeah.
give yourself the space to say, no, I don't feel like being touched right now. And that's okay,
Yeah.
right? No, I need to talk to
Right.
somebody and deal with my past so that my past
Right.
doesn't impact how I'm raising my children. Yes, there's some trauma from my childhood that I don't want to pass on to my child. Let me talk to somebody that can navigate that for me, because going backwards sometimes is a scary thing to do. It's a scary place to do. And having
Right.
someone that is skilled in that and has
Yeah.
had proper training in that to help navigate those waters is okay. Like, it doesn't make you less than a mom, or make you less than a woman, or less than a
Right.
wife, or less than, a believer in whatever you believe in, because you said I'm not okay. That line right there, I think, is going to be. I'm really emotional right now, but it's going to
Yeah.
be, wow, my biggest takeaway from today, because
Okay.
you're just taught that you gotta be on all the time,
Yeah.
and that you have
Right.
to get it right every single time. And the
Yeah.
amount of pressure that moms put on themselves to get it right. And I'm talking a lot for me, because I'm an older mom. And so
Yeah.
it's for me, it's even more pressure because I am in my 40s having a baby. And when he gets out of high school, I'll be in my 60s. What does that look like? So it's all these
Right.
things to make sure that I don't miss it. I don't mess up. I don't, change him in any way, because he has an older mom, and I don't want him to feel slighted, And so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that normalizing not being okay is absolutely amazing to me. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so important, right, to be able to do that and to model that for our kids, right? Because that's how you begin to just make space for knowing that feelings matter, right? And it's by naming, hey, in this moment, I'm not okay, I'm overwhelmed, right? I'm gonna take a second,
Mhm.
and I'm just gonna, take a second for myself. And being able to, again, normalizing, what that does is it not only gives you permission, but it sets the stage for you to be able to do something different, right? Whether that different is accepting the help, whether that difference is acknowledging, hey, I'm tired in this moment. I'm just going to step away for 5 minutes, take 5 minutes to myself. I think it sets the stage for you to be able to not have to just take on everything until it gets to a point where you're exploding. Because whether that be you're not sharing, you're not getting support, you're trying to take on everything. Everyone has their breaking point at some time or at some point. And so I think, being able to say, I'm not okay in this moment, it gives you a moment to just be able to breathe and to think about, okay, what can I do next to really problem solve this a little bit?
I promise you, that is my biggest takeaway from today's segment. Is normalizing just not being okay and giving yourself permission, right? Like giving yourself permission to say whatever that is that you need to say. I think it's just
Right.
amazing. So in closing, what resources, what websites, what Facebook page would you recommend for moms who are looking for additional support? And when it comes to, maybe I'm not ready to necessarily go into therapy, but I want a platform or something that can kind of help me through it. What would you recommend?
Right. Right, right. So I would first start with your own community, right? Who you feel closest to. I mean, again, I think a lot of times as moms, with us always being on the go, we may have friends or individuals that we call on in certain, if we need to borrow, I don't know, whether it be some sugar or we need to get some advice, about something
Yeah,
else, right? But we don't call them to just talk, to just kind of decompress about our day. And I recognize everybody's mental capacity to engage in a conversation is different. But when you talk about supports, I think, we can start getting creative out here as women, as parents, supporting each other, right? Zoom calls, scheduling weekly Zoom calls with people just to talk about something else other than responsibilities, right?
mhm.
What we did that we enjoyed. So creating supports in that way. I would also say, that if religion is something that is important to you, engaging with your church family is one of the reasons why, churches or just different religion exists in the community. It's to bring support and bring connection. And so making sure to utilize that. And then if you feel like therapy is for you, of course, again, my website's listed here. I also have therapist colleagues that I'm always happy to refer to, and Psychology Today is another awesome resource as well. So again, let's start normalizing the help seeking and building a support team to where you're not having to navigate these challenges by yourself, but you have people that you can either vent to, that you can cry on, that you can give hugs from, you can engage in listening to music and doing a dance with, bake cakes with, whatever it needs to be. Start building your team so that you're not doing it by yourself.
Absolutely. And in our final seconds, I want you to talk about your book.
Awesome. Yeah. So my book, Reclaiming Romance, 6 Strategies to Strengthening Your Relationship, is for the couple who is feeling like, darn, like we are really feeling disconnected, right? Something's happened. We're just new parents. We just moved in together. We're having these frequent arguments. We need a way to connect with each other. And so my book is meant to be a vehicle for that connection. For the couple who either maybe you're in therapy or maybe you're not sure about therapy yet. My book is meant to give some strategies, point by point of what you can do to try to rekindle that romance. And what I want to go back to this because I forgot to throw out a resource here. Central Virginia Clinicians of Color is a network that I am a part of, and we are a network that has a bunch of talented clinicians of color that can provide culturally responsive care to individuals in need.
Can you say it again for me? The
So
name of it
I
again for me?
Central Virginia Clinicians of Color.
And how would they find them? Is it on what? Is it on Facebook? Is it on, like, how would they find them?
So, yes, it has a website. We have a website. We also have both Facebook and social media. And I can get you the information as well. So
Absolutely.
they could reach directly for more information as well.
Absolutely. And what I'll do is in the description of the video, I will have their information. I'll also have Shayla's information listed. And so we'll make sure that in the description of it, it won't be one on this particular video as a pop-up, but in the
Right.
description of under the video, there will definitely be a resource showing, and it will have all the information there for you. Do you
Right.
anything else you have in closing?
No, just, well, yes, also just knowing that, I think as healers in this community, we have to take care of ourselves as
Absolutely.
well so that we can be a support to other people. And again, that's where that resource, Central Virginia Clinicians of Color, is huge. The mission is to support and pouring into healers so that we can create the capacity to support other individuals. And so I'm just, closing with, let's all get support. Let's all be supported out here in these streets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I love it. You know me, I love it. This is why I started this how all this got started. Needing support
Right.
and wanting to provide a safe community. So I want to thank you guys for watching. This is going to wrap us up today. I thank you, Shayla, so much for coming back on and just giving us more expertise and giving me something to take away. I promise you, I'm going to post that today on Facebook. Like that's how much,
Okay.
that's normalized not being okay. It's powerful to me, especially in the
Right.
community when it comes to being a mommy.
Mhm.
Don't try to beat everything for everybody in shortchange. Even on a
Right.
plane, they say you put your mask on first, take care of you first,
That's
and then help those around you. And so, but thank you all for watching. We will be back next week, same time, same place. Tell your friends, tell your aunts and them, tell your other mommies, put on your social media page. Dear mama, you got this. I want you to know you got this. This is your safe place. We have a Facebook group. It is private. You have to agree to some rules to be in it, but it's a place for moms of all race, all color, all age to come in and say, hey, it's my safe to discuss motherhood and whatever that looks like for you on that day. I'll be doing
Mhm.
daily posting, giving out encouraging words. But if you have a question, if you just want to share, but it's about empowering motherhood. Follow us on our social media platforms. Make sure you subscribe to the video. And don't forget to come back next week and see us. I thank you for your time and for watching. Have an amazing day. And remember, you got this and you rock. I don't know who didn't tell you today, but guess what? I'm telling you, you have been created to do this and you are doing an amazing job of being a mom. You all have a great one and we'll see you all next week. Bye.